It said sold out.
All right, good morning, everybody. Got a couple announcements, couple things coming up. The first, if you're not a member and you're looking to become a member, discover Northcrest today at 4:15 in this room. This is kind of the last step before becoming a member, and then we'll present you tonight at the service, after the service. And then the kids, for a fundraiser for the kids camp, is barbecue chicken plates. And so I think there's a couple people in here that have kids that are going, so go ahead.
Before Brittany gets to y'all, we have a kid too. Me and Dalton.
So,
Or Tyler back here. He's got some.
So that May the 5th is when you'll pick that up. You can eat it here at the church or take it to go. $12 a ticket, just find somebody. Let me encourage you to do that, helps their cost. And then Columbia Mission Trip, there's a golf tournament on the 3rd at 1 o'clock at Briarwood. Good job. Somebody knows what's going on. Briarwood, or if you like, huh?
May
May 3rd, Friday.
April 3rd.
Friday.
May the 3rd, it's a Friday at 1 o'clock. And or if you'd like to sponsor a hole, you can do that in honor of somebody.
Yeah, hey, I can talk to you after today. We can have a little and it can be just $10.
You can put save the date notices along all the tee boxes. There you go. If you need a flower girl, I got you.
I don't know if you want these people playing golf at your wedding, but we get the word out. So, yes, very good. So those are a couple things that are coming up here at Northcrest. All right. So the great idea of moving the board up here did not work out too good. So what's some life-changing events that have happened in your life?
Getting married.
Getting married?
Having kids.
All right. Kids?
In a good way.
Yeah.
We're gonna preface it.
Anybody else?
Adulting.
Yes.
Just become an adult.
Yeah.
All right.
That's tough.
Salvation.
Oh, yes, that's a good one.
Good one.
We are at church, y'all.
Who wants to try to trump that one? Anybody got one better than salvation?
I don't think you can beat that.
Everybody's been on a mission trip. They're usually pretty life-changing events too.
Mine was for sure. Andrea, I was blogging about my first trip, and Andrea's like, "Oh, this is a different person."
Deployment was life-changing for us both.
Yeah, deployment.
Right?
Yeah. A little bit life-changing, leaving your family in one city and then moving here.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys had a couple of life-changing. Just all the moves that you guys been, all the places.
Every week is
military.
Taking on new family, losing family.
Not losing family. Our grandsons.
Ashton, that's changing your life every day.
Every day.
Yeah, so life-changing moments, sometimes they're planned, sometimes they're not planned. Sometimes God is at work and we have one plan or what we think is gonna work out and how things happen, and then God changes them. Why are some people resistant to change?
It's uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable.
They're not in control.
Not in control.
Amen, sister.
They don't want to believe what they're familiar with behind.
Yeah,
That's what I always hear.
yeah,
You know, like, I don't want to leave, my friends behind. I don't want to leave what I'm doing behind.
A lot of it's fear of the unknown.
yeah, the unknown is what gets people.
Yeah, 90% of my mental breakdowns are because of
What
slight changes in my routine or daily life.
So,
I can't. I can't handle it.
What are the other 10%?
Larger
A
changes.
little bit larger.
and not making light of your
My
issues.
second cup.
But what is one thing you know is going to happen? Change. Change is gonna happen. It always does. It's inevitable. We just don't know what it is, and that's the problem that we have with it, the unknown, or what it is and how it's gonna happen and things like that. So Jacob, back to his story. Life throws changes at us whether we like it or not, but we know that an encounter with Christ transforms our lives in a way that nothing else can. In today's session, Jacob had a life-changing experience with God that had a personal impact on him, his immediate family, and his descendants. And so, as you guys turn in your Bibles to Genesis chapter 32, kind of like, let me bridge the gap from last week's lesson to this one, as we continue study of Jacob. Jacob has worked out a plan of how he's going to get wealthy. He has his whole family together and he's ready to go back. God has already said it's time to go make amends with your family, go back to see your father and your mother, go back to your homeland, take everything with you. And so that's his plan. And he's not sure that Laban is going to let him go, because Laban is now really mad at him, because last week we learned that all the sheep and all the cattle and everything that started that were being born were given to Jacob because they were spotted or blemished or had stripes on them, and that was kind of the deal. But God continued to bless, and every animal Jacob continues. So Laban got jealous of this and gets mad, and so he's like, how am I supposed to leave with this? So he just leaves, and when he leaves, Laban comes after him, chases after him, continues to follow him, and finally gets up to him. And Laban has a dream, and this dream is that he is not to do anything to Jacob, that he's to let him go, but Laban is still upset, and Laban is not a follower of God, and so he has his own idols, his own little gods that he worships and prays to and asks prayers to, and so he's not sure how he's going to respond, but he gets angry with Jacob once he finally gets to him, and then finally he just says, God says that I'm not supposed to do anything. Just give me back my idols, give me back what you've taken from me. And he can't find them because Jacob doesn't even know that his wife took these idols from Laban's house. And so they go into this back and forth with it. And the whole thing that Jacob is doing or preparing for at this time is that he is going to try to make amends with Esau. He knows that he cannot go back home until he makes amends with Esau. So he is first going to set that up, make sure that everything's good there, or just deal with the consequences of it. I don't know if you ever got to that point where you're in a rough situation, or maybe it's a relationship that's just difficult. Maybe it was a good friendship that you had at one time. Maybe it is a sibling or a family member, and you're just like, I'm tired of it. I'm just going to put it out there, just going to deal with it instead of run from this problem. Jacob's finally going to face it head on. It seems like during his time with Laban, God really works in his life, and God is really changing who he is. His heart is changing. His life is changing. He is trying to do the right thing. He has become quite a strong believer, and by faith, he is doing what he's supposed to. I think he's 80 or 90 years old at this point. And so, I mean, he's lived a long time and lived with this baggage or this difficulty, and he just wants it gone. He just wants to make amends and live the rest of his life in peace. And so he's on his way to see Esau, but along the way, God is going to intervene in his life. So, all right, so Genesis 32, this is where we pick up. They're about to go, let me pick up one more thing. He had already sent some messengers to Esau to say, hey, your brother's coming through. He has a gift for you. He's like, what better way to make amends than give a lot of my wealth away, and I'll just appease my brother with all this and try to make sure everything's good. And they go to him, and Esau says, all right, I want to see Jacob. I want to talk to him as well. And the messengers come back, and they're like, Great news. Esau wants to see you, but he's coming with 400 chariots. He's coming with all these men. He's coming with all this. And Jacob's probably like, all right, let's just get it over with. So he makes this plan, and he's going to separate the two parts of his family. Remember, he has 2 wives, so he takes wives and a couple of kids, and everything he owns, he splits it out into 2 groups. So that way, if Esau comes and he wants to fight, that he'll maybe take half of his family, but the other family will be able to live and move on. So he sets up this plan. They're about to set it up to be able to meet with Esau, but they're about to cross over a river, and that's where we pick up in the story. And so if someone could read Genesis 32, 22 to 24.
During the night, Jacob got up and look up and took his 2 wives, his 2 servants' wives, and his 11 sons, and crossed the Jabbok River with them. After taking them to the other side, he sent over all his possessions, then left Jacob all alone in the camp, and the men came and wrestled with him until the dawn began to break. The men saw that he would not.
Got a little hyper there.
Get too excited. So just pretty straightforward. He's got his families kind of separated. They're sending him across the river, and as he's going, either the providence of God or just being a man, he's helping everybody cross, make sure everything's across before he goes. And as everybody gets to the other side, it's pitch black, it's dark, there's no light, and it's not like they can even have a light or anything like that. You can't turn on some light switches or anything like that. So it's pitch black, and he's waiting. And if you ever been like out in the middle of nowhere when it's dark, it is dark. There's nothing, and so a lot of times you can't even see really in front of you. You just see the stars and things like that, and the moon. That's the only light that you have, and that's kind of the situation. And they're going across this river and making sure everything. And this isn't an easy trek across this river. This is still a good providence of God that they're able to cross this river and get across it. And it's part of the Jordan River. It's on the northern part of it, and so this is, a lot of times these are symbolic times for God's people, is to cross a river, to cross over into a new place, a new land. And as they're crossing over, they're getting into Esau's territory. Esau has now quite a landmass for himself and for his family. He has done really well for himself. So as they're crossing, everybody gets across, all of his possessions, everything's there, and Jacob is left alone. And a man wrestled with him until daybreak. And so this man, you probably heard this story before, you probably looked at it before. Who knows what the options are for who this man is? So who possibly could this man be? Did I hear Jesus? Jesus? All right, who else?
At first, I kind of thought himself, but I don't think he would dislocate his own hip.
One of the angels.
Yeah, it could be an angel, yes. In general, it could just be God. How that happens in bodily form. So angel, a man, it could be just a man, right? That's what it says here, a man. And so there's some different options, different things. Hosea chapter 12, it says that the Lord has an indictment against Judah and will punish Jacob according to his ways. He will repay him according to his deeds. In the womb, he took his brother by the heel, and in his manhood, he strove with God. He strove with the angel and prevailed. He wept and sought his favor. He met God at Bethel, and there God spoke with us. The Lord, the God of hosts, the Lord in his memorial name. And so even in Hosea, we got God and we got an angel in that. And so kind of goes back and forth. I really don't think, after doing a lot of study on it, I don't think it changes anything with the main point of it, but it is a good kind of thought process to think through with it. When we look at the story of Jacob, this is like a story within the story. So what's going on in his life is he is wrestling with God. He is wrestling with his family. He is feuding with all of this going on. And then literally he is going to meet God there. And so this is a story within a story. And it's very common in narrative writings to have this kind of thing. But as they're working through all the situation, working through what's going on, man wrestles with him until daybreak. So this is like 6, 7, 8 hours that they're going to be wrestling all night. When I think about God, I think about how powerful he is, and I'm like, man, I don't think I'll last like 2 minutes. But Jacob is holding his own for that long in that. So there's some, and I don't agree with it, that this is just a spiritual battle that's going on, and like this is kind of figurative or an analogy of what's going on in his life. But I think we can think about in our own lives some of the things that we've wrestled with spiritually. And so our first question is, Have you ever wrestled with God spiritually? Has there ever been like those moments in your life spiritually that you wrestled with God? And if you would like to share, we'd love for you to share. Testimony of what you went through and why you wrestled with God on maybe a decision that you had to make, or a life-changing event, or anything like that. Anybody want to share?
I don't think this is like a, I'm sorry.
There you go.
I don't think this is like a specific thing, but just like, like figuring out different beliefs that people have about the Bible, or like things that could be looked at different ways, like predestination or whatever it may be. And like, I've had people in my life that I trust and I like feel like they know the word, but they might have differing opinions from someone else that is like a leader in the church or something like that. And maybe it's different denominations, but maybe it's not, and they just have those differing opinions. And I think I'd like go to God and I'd wrestle a lot with like, you know, I don't want to get stuck on like the human beliefs, but what he's like trying to say through it, or just kind of wrestling with him with that and like those truths. So
just seeking the Spirit for the answer instead of just a bunch of means.
Yeah.
No, when I was in the military, the last 3 years, I was faced with some really, really bad, I guess I wasn't getting along with my command, and I had some like horrible allegations against me, and they weren't true. And I went through a very, very tough time. It was hard. And I remember praying. I was praying so much because, you know, I didn't know what to do. And in my dream, God told me just to be quiet. You know, he said it several times. He said, be quiet. Don't say anything. I'll fight your battle. And it was so hard. I'm telling you, it was hard, especially when you hear people talking and then the rumor comes back to you. And, you know, but he told me just to stand firm and not to say anything. And that, you know, and there was so many times that I just wanted to just say something. And I prayed about it. He just told me to be quiet. So I practically was dragged through the mud for like probably 5 months until they, you know, did an investigation and all of that. And then it came back, and I was cleared, you know, and I remember the commanding officer called me into his office, and he apologized for all the things that he said to me, you know, and I didn't know what to say, you know. I just stood there, and then, you know, he gave me a hug. But as I walked out, you know, I was like, wow. I'm like, he apologized to me for all the things that he said to me, that he believed, you know, the allegations. But it was tough. It was so tough. And he told me, you know, and I had to listen to what he said. And there were times that I would tell Ben, I said, I need to say something. I need to say something. He's like, no, remember what God told you. That's the hardest thing. Hard, because you wonder, is it really my mind telling me not to say anything, or is it God, you know? Because in my dreams, he told me that. But that was hard. But I listened to him, and, you know, everything was cleared. But I still, you know, there are times that I still think about it, and I get really upset, and I was like, man, I should have said this. But, you know, that's the hard part.
You want to share? No. So, one of the toughest times for me spiritually was when we moved here. We had like everything, like just, you know, the moment until we accepted the call, is kind of how we worded in church life, to accept the call to come to here and everything. And like everything was just falling into place. Like the house sold quickly, like everything was going well. We just had this envision of moving here and like starting a new life with new church, new people. Our boys would go to school, and Blake would be playing baseball at the best baseball school in the area. Like the church was just going to be great. There's so many people, so many things going on. And then we moved here, and COVID happened, and there was no church. There were some weeks Barrett and I would come, and there was like 8 people here. So we had no church. I'm the discipleship person, and I don't know anybody. And we don't have small groups or Bible studies going on. We're trying to do like online. Blake did not make the baseball team. And so then we're like, all right, like everything we thought was going to work out did not. And Sarah had to deal with me during that time. She was my secretary. And we were going by each room, setting up these chairs, and she put together all of these chairs right here. This is Sarah's hand. Not these chairs. This is a good one. The other ones that fall apart, all the whiteboards, yeah, we were the whiteboard people. Like, we were just trying to find stuff to keep us busy, like, during those times, but like nothing worked out. But then, like, through that, I think our family now is stronger. We have a better understanding of our calling together as a family and as a marriage, and we worked through some marriage things that we didn't know were a problem until you're in the house with your wife or husband for 24/7. Then you start to realize maybe communication isn't the best or things, and so we worked through some of those, and so in the end, it was much better. But at the beginning, it was like, oh, come on, Lord, what is going on here? Like, did we make the wrong decision during all that? So there's those spiritual moments in our lives that are going to kind of just define who we are, and they're going to really strengthen us in our faith, or they're going to challenge us in our faith along the way. And again, this is a real story, a real time, and a real place that happened for Jacob. But there is that spiritual element that's going on. It's what happens here is a bigger picture of what's happening spiritually in his life. So continuing on, we're going to see more about the details of what's going on in this fight. Is Genesis 32:25-29. If someone could read that for us.
When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for the day has broken." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." And he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." Then he said, "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed."
29.
Then Jacob asked him, "Please tell me your name." But he said, "Why is it that you ask my name?" And there he blessed him.
So again, this is ongoing all night long till daybreak. And at this point, this man decides, you know what, I need to do something to end this. And so he hits him in his hip socket, puts him out of place, dislocates his hip, which I'm sure is very painful and going to leave a mark on him. And then he said to Jacob, "Let me go, for it's daybreak." And I did some research on this. I really don't have a good answer why, like, he didn't want to reveal himself, or he didn't want to really, because remember, this is pitch black dark, and so he probably doesn't know exactly who it is. But at this point, Jacob must know that this is a person of authority, person of power, a person that can must be some type of spiritual level, because he asked for a blessing, and so he must know that he's wrestling with somebody, not just a regular person at this point. And he says, well, he won't let him go until you bless him. And he says, "What is your name?" And so I thought about this. What is he actually asking here? What is your name? Do you think this person doesn't know Jacob's name? He probably knows what his name is, right? So what is he asking really when he asks, "What is your name?"
For him to recognize himself, like, who are you? Like,
Yeah,
snap
who
out of
are
it,
you?
like-
So when I tell people Ben Kurt, and if you know Ben, then you get this connotation in your mind. You're like, got this idea of who Ben is, his personality, who he all is. When he asks him his name, he's saying, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm Jacob." And does anybody know what the name Jacob actually means?
Heel grabber?
Huh?
Is it heel grabber?
Heel grabber, or deceiver. And so it pretty lines up with his name, who he was. He's a heel grabber because he grabbed his brother's heel and on the way out, and then he's also a deceiver. He deceived all his life, was this deceiver, this person. And so he's like, "Who are you?" He's basically asking, who are you as a person? What defines you as a person? So I was curious, does anybody know what your name actually means, and does it?
Yes.
Does it align with your actual, does it align with you, who you actually are? Alright,
To the
Sarah?
audience on that one.
My name's Princess.
Alright, moving on.
Jury on that, out on that.
Princess.
Mine means defender of mankind.
Yes, girl.
No, it does make sense. It does make sense.
Mine is a sea of bitterness, so I hope it doesn't.
We should swap names.
Mine is son of Harry, and I'm not the son of Harry. Like, I'm not even like.
Rebecca, what does yours mean? Because you're not really part of this story, but you are in the story. Your name.
Okay, so in my Bible, it literally says the chosen wife.
Yes, you are.
All right.
Now you are. But Google
Up
says-
until a couple weeks ago, we questioned your name, but now. Dalton, you know what yours means?
Yeah, well, that's pretty lame. That name. Valley or settlement.
So if Brittany's living in the
Living in the
valley.
valley, with the valley.
Oh,
To tie firmly.
What?
I don't know what that means.
you're talking
Tie
about.
firmly.
At least yours is good.
What's mine?
It means God is my
The
oath.
feminine name of captivating beauty.
See, that's not good. That's big.
That's what I'm
Pop called with that handmaiden.
What does Benjamin mean? Do you know?
The son of God's right hand.
She's got them all.
That's my brother's name. That's
Oh.
why I know that.
I was like,
The son of God's right hand.
Oh,
Your
man.
tattoo.
Benjamin.
That's it. That's what he's getting. Big old spear.
What was mine? God.
Get a picture of that. God is my oath.
God is my
Son of my right hand.
my spear.
I studied names.
I'm armed. Dangerous.
That's a good name.
It does. Very, very similar.
Fletcher is,
Gift of God.
like full quiver.
Fight.
Each one of the kids.
There's a guy on my team.
But you wanna hear what
Last
the
name
name
Ross,
sounds?
like,
Oh.
so-
I was like, all right, here we go.
No, it's Italian.
You gotta spell it right.
B-E-A-U, it should be French for
I
girl
looked it up,
boyfriend.
it's like a Spanish word.
What are you laughing at?
Right? Feel attacked.
No.
It's just the way you were just so confident. Yeah,
That's why
it means handsome.
when you see the word
Hers just means like from versus or from. English Valley.
Tron, where'd you get that name?
My auntie, the name is kind of confusing for me. It said torture device. But on the good side, I see an instrument of motivation, so I like
See that
We'll
one.
go with that one.
So, Tron, is that a nickname or is that your real name?
it's part, well, it's Kentron, so
oh, yeah.
just a second.
Andrea has a funny story of she
Do I?
reads with kids. She read with some kids on Friday, and what,
His name is Roricus, and which is hard to say though, because the R after Roricus.
Say Roricus.
And so I said in the story we were reading, I was like, "Do you have a nickname?" And he's like, Roy, but my real name is RJ. And I was like, "No, your real name is Roricus Jr., but they call you RJ." It's really funny.
some people have like a nickname that you don't even know that isn't their name. I have a friend that I was in seminary with. His name is Buddy, and
So you see
His
me?
last name Guy.
You see me when you go to Buddy, you gotta bring.
like right now, I can't even think of his real first name.
Buddy Guy.
I'm just wondering if you hear me hollering in my classroom, like when you walk by. I was like, wait a minute. It might be too early in the morning. Maybe you're not hollering yet. I come during noon time around
Fridays.
9:45. You're trying to like, not your daughter, I promise. she's like top notch, the best.
But yeah, some people have nicknames that like you don't even realize that that's not their real name.
I had people in college who didn't
Yeah.
know my name was Andrew. Like long down the road, they thought my first name was Steve because that's just what they said.
Yeah, military, you guys go by last name, and so that throws it off for a while too.
And Andrew's way too common of a name anyway, and I don't like Andy or Drew, so I went by Steve since like middle school. So.
Anybody have a nickname?
Big Flex.
Big Flex.
Big Flex.
No,
Normally nicknames are shorter.
Yeah.
Big legs. I thought you said big flex.
I heard that too. It started off as a joke, and I just can't stop it.
Well, you got a nickname?
Say bro, dude.
Our daughter she's about to be 5 in a few months, but she calls him his basketball name was G Baby in high school. She's like, Daddy or G Baby, I need some milk. But my son is his stepson, and he calls him Gary. So now Lily calls him Gary. He's like, no, I'm your daddy. And I call him Gary.
Like being in ministry and then having my kids in my part of the ministry, because I did children's ministry before this, like they'd be like, Dad, Pastor Bo. It's like, what? So, yeah. Harrison, you got any nicknames?
Not really.
Harry? No.
I was about to say Harry.
Yes.
Tillman?
Styles.
No, that's my last.
Yeah, Styles.
Harry Styles.
You're so stylish.
Oh, I know.
Harry Styles. So stylish.
All right, so back to our lesson here. That was good. That was fun. Learned a lot.
Everyone's cross today.
So really, like, what is your name? Who are you? He's basically making him think about who he is as a person, because it's about to change. He's about to change his name so everything that's in his past can be left there and he can move on to the future. So he says he gives him a new name, which is Israel, which means to struggle with God. And then when you think about Israel as a nation, as a people, that's what they're known for. They're struggling with God all the time. All through the Old Testament, we see this struggle between God and his people over and over again, back and forth. And that's what Israel really means. The one that prevails, or the one that wrestles with God, the one that struggles with God. And he prevails. In the end, literally, Jacob prevails in the end. And then also, God's people in the end are going to prevail. They're going to come out on top, even though, even last night, we see literally what's going on in our world today. But in the end, it's going to work out for his people. And then Jacob's like, well, you asked me, so let me ask you who you are, what your name is. But he says, why do you ask me your name? Why do you think this person or this man would ask, what is my name? Why do you think he would ask that?
I guess because he should know who he is.
Yeah. Yeah, like, how do you not know who I am? And then there's also this level of authority that, like, you wouldn't ask somebody that. Like, I'm trying to think of a situation. Well, we got a couple military people in here, and y'all know I'm not good with my rankings or anything like that. Found out you don't hang out with generals on the weekend, but so if somebody's higher up and they're a person, you guys will have to explain it. Would you ask them, what's your first name?
No.
Yeah, this is kind of like the same situation. It's like, this person is a person of authority. He could give out blessings. He's like, has all this that says you just want to ask what your first name is, or ask what a person's name is. You should just know who it is.
It was like being a kid, and if you tried to ask, like, Mr. Smith or whatever, like, my parents would have taken my height. Like, it was not appropriate.
Yeah. Mr. or Mrs. Everybody's Mr. or Mrs. in the South. In the North, we're not. No. You just by your name, but a little bit different. But yeah, it's kind of like in that connotation, and he doesn't tell him who he is because he should know, but he does give him the blessing. And it reminded me kind of, you know, this idea that you can be one person and then become something else. And a lot of times we see this kind of in a bad situation. Does anybody know who Ted Conrad is? Anybody know that name? So, Ted Conrad, Theodore Conrad, was an American bank teller who pulled off a major heist in 1969. Here's a quick rundown. The crime, and when he was 20 years old, he worked for the bank, and he stole $215,000 from the vault, which would be about $1.79 million today. He gets away with it. He disappears, changes his name, lives the rest of his life. He has family, he has kids, everything. For 52 years, nobody can find him, nobody knows what's going on. He changes his identity, changes who he is, leaves that whole life behind, and then lives in Massachusetts. And then on his deathbed, he gets cancer, and on his deathbed, he reveals to his family who he actually is and confesses this to his daughter in that. And you can watch some videos of it. At first, his daughter was very confused, or like,
She grew
man,
up
it's,
rich.
you know, well, the money didn't last too long.
I feel like, good job, Dad.
But because she's thinking he's one person this whole life, and then realize, oh, there's a whole nother story here with it. And I think we can kind of relate that to our salvation, or there's probably some moment in your life as we grow older that really become committed to the Lord, and then you can see a real change in who you were before. And some of us would like a lot of our past to never come back up. There's a lot with that. I remember even when I was interviewed here, they were going to do a background check on me. I was like, these are the things that you're going to find. And that, like JD said, he was excited to run my background check to find all this stuff. But a lot of my stuff was when I was a minor, so it did not come back up. But there was some stuff that they did had to look at and decide on that kind of stuff. But there's some things that just in your past that you want to leave there. And your name kind of associates with that. So sometimes you have to move, sometimes you have to relocate, sometimes you just have to change some things in your life to be able to change who you are. So I think the real reason why he asked who his name is just out of ignorance. He wanted to make sure that this was who he thought it was, that this was God in some sense, or angel, or Jesus, or who. And that's why still part of this is that we don't have a real answer for that, because it doesn't give a clear answer throughout Scripture. So, all right, moving on to the last part. This is the end result. So Genesis 32:30-32, if someone could read that.
So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, saying, "For I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered." The sun rose upon him, and he passed Peniel, limping because of his hip. Therefore to this day the people of Israel do not eat the sinew of the thigh that is on the hip socket, because he touched that socket of Jacob's hip on the sinew of the thigh.
All right, so he gives this place a name. This is very common in the Old Testament, like new places, new areas, something that happens in that place, and they give a name, and Peniel, and then Peniel is just another way of saying that same word. And so it basically means that he met God face to face, meaning that he really believes that this was God. And so that's what we should walk away understanding who this person is God in some form, some way, sent to work in Jacob's life, and ultimately to bless him, to give him a new life, a new way, a new purpose, and then to restore everything that is part of the promise, that Jacob is part of the promise that is going to lead to God's plan. And so he's part of that. And his life was spared when he met face to face. When we look at throughout Scripture, we kind of put it in a box that you cannot see God at all. If you were, then you are unclean. You are not holy enough to be able to see God and to live on the other side. That's like when talks with Moses. When we look at the New Testament, there's several times where he's like, nobody has met with God and lived to tell the story, basically. When Moses met with them and all this. And so he says that he met face to face with God, yet his life was spared. And then the sun comes up and he's limping because of that hip, leaving a mark on him, a reminder of this meeting, reminder of what is happening in his life and how his life is going to be different. Usually we have scars or marks in our lives to remind us of the things that we've done, or maybe there's stories in our past. Some are spiritual scars, and some are actual physical scars of things that maybe weren't the smartest decisions, things like that. But so this hip was a reminder. And then this last part, I thought about just removing it all together because I don't really have a good answer of what this means. But if you think about God's people do some things that are just weird and a little bit different. But they're a reminder of God's people are set apart from the world, that we're set apart to be different. And I think that's ultimately what's going on with the thigh muscle and why they won't eat the hip socket and the meat around the thigh and things like that. Even to this day, I don't know if that's still common in Jewish life today or if it's just in this time, but it was just a reminder that the people are different, that God's people would be set apart to be different. Ultimately, it's a reminder of God's great work in Jacob, and then soon to be Israel, and then Israel as a nation going forth, that they're always separate, always a little bit different. And so, last couple of questions. Do you have any scars that remind you of an event in your life? Like,
You want a C-section scar?
C-section, yes. We'll do real scars first, and then we can do spiritual. Anybody got some more scars?
Yeah. Any scar you usually have is an event that happened, but the one on the back of my hand was from football, and I caught a cleat right across the back of the hand. And the funny thing was, I don't know if it was funny, but it was cold and we were so tense that it didn't bleed for 15 minutes. You could just see into my hand, and you're like, that's weird. And then all of a sudden I sat down on the bench and relaxed, and I was like, holy crap.
Yeah. Oh.
From ACL.
Your ACL?
Surgical scars.
From our volleyball game 2 months ago, my niece still tells me that. Still?
Age does things to you, Harrison.
I saw you guys jumping around. I thought I could do it too. Oh, which reminds me, Matthew, we made you into a photo emoji of you spiking the ball. We need to send that to you.
We can like pictures now with you. He pulled that one up. He was like, look at this picture.
My face scar. I was gonna say, I got this mark on my leg right here. I was hit by a car when I was. It's kind of like a little.
Did your mom not tell you not to play in the road?
Look both ways before crossing.
Yeah, so I have long sleeves, but you'll see that I have a brand right here. And I remember not the first time. Andrew's mom had to have noticed it, but we were engaged at this point, and we got him over to the house, and she's like, "What is that on your arm?" And I was like, "Oh, we don't talk about this." She said, "I'm the mother-in-law. We talk about those things." So yeah, there's a brand, and then I have under my chin where I've got stitches on my mom's second marriage on the wedding day in the morning. So they got married at 9 o'clock at night instead of 9 o'clock in the morning. I got another scar here. You broke your nose?
Yeah, I got a scar on my nose right here.
I have a scar on my face.
There's another one right here of stitches where I was too close to my uncles that were working cutting up brush and stuff and got too close.
My brother accidentally hit me in the head with a hammer because I got too close.
Was it an accident? I'd be suspicious.
I have a couple marks under my eye. I don't remember which one it is because my sister hit me with a baseball bat. Not on accident. A couple of other scars on my hair, and through my head, under the hair, from I think it was every year for 8 years I got stitches. So how about anybody want to share any spiritual scars events in your life? Or is there something you want to praise God for the blessing with you today? And so think about Jacob and he was blessed with the new name. Maybe we would just kind of close out the next couple minutes with just praises of what God has done in your life. Giving him praise.
Maturing.
Yes.
Say my nursing degree. That was a rough road.
Yeah, we prayed hard for you during those times.
Everybody gets to walk across that stage. That was a rough road.
Yes.
Watching Dylan grow,
Mm.
just watching just his how he's so in the Bible, you know, and how he prays. I was having such a hard time yesterday. He's going through a lot of stuff, and he came to me and he talked to me. You know, I just never expected my son to understand what I was feeling, and then he's like, let's just pray. And I was like, whoa, are you the same kid that, you know? So we prayed, you know, we had a long prayer session, all three of us, and that was, you know, Dylan told me instead of talking about it, let's just pray about it. So I was pretty amazed, you know, with considering the things that, you know, we had to go through with Dylan, you know. I mean, it was tough. The last couple of years with Dylan was tough, but just seeing how he's changing, I just thank God for it every day.
Yeah, and it's been pretty rapid, like
Yeah.
the change in his life. So, good. Anybody else?
I would say family, from immediate family to church family, work family, just this year, I just seen how important family is, just everyone around.
Very good.
Huge blessing from God this weekend was, and the weather was gorgeous this weekend. That's one thing, but then it just provided the opportunity for my class to come together and like have a barbecue this weekend, and we had some really good, deep political and spiritual conversations last night till like 1 a.m. And it was just really cool to kind of like open up and talk the other guys I work with about stuff like that.
Cool. Very good.
I think just the the continual work that God's doing, just like I had a Zoom call with my former professor, and you know, it was to interview for my final requirement, but you know, but she shared a story with like how God's laid on her heart that she wants to connect to a Native American community and just offer her services, you know, so that just kind of butted into another conversation. So just seeing how God is just working in many different areas. So
good. One more.
I'll say a blessing for this church. This church has grown so fast. And it's just amazing. It's amazing to see this church grow the way it's going.
It is. A lot of new people every week, too.
I say the class.
Yes.
You know, definitely. I mean, I know I'm not always here, but I love how I'm able to connect people in here, like these guys, you know, military. I mean, you know, it was hard for me because I always told Ben, I said, it's just really hard for me to even connect to people because I feel like I'm really different. I mean, my way of thinking and how, you know, how I say things.
Ben did make a face.
It's hard. We get invited to, you know, places from our other group. I just couldn't, you know, and so I prayed and I was like, God, just connect us to someone, you know, another class. And I'm very thankful for you guys, you know, although I don't say much. I mean, I do talk a lot, but, you know, I feel comfortable here.
Yeah,
you know.
That's good. Yeah, we try to work hard on making this a comfortable place, even though we're online. So, very good. All right. So, what do we do with this lesson? The application points. People should expect to encounter God in times of their greatest need. Believers have a new identity after they encounter God, and then believers can celebrate God's working in their lives. And so, I think kind of in Baptist life, we do a lot of prayer and we talk about a lot of needs and things like that, but we don't do a good job of celebrating what God is doing. And so, hopefully we can add that more to our class towards the end, not just prayer requests, but also praises, just things God is doing, because he is working, and you don't know, the praise that happens in your life could be an encouragement to somebody else. And so do want to continue that as we go forward. All right, let me pray, and then we'll do our prayer requests and things like that. Our Father, we do thank you for this day, the opportunity to get together and to look at your word. And Father, as Jacob literally wrestled with you in physical form, Father, that there's all kinds of spiritual needs that are going on in our lives. And Father, that you would work in us, that your Spirit would work in our hearts and our lives, and to give us the opportunity to overcome whatever spiritual battles are going on between good and evil in our lives. And Father, could be just decisions and life changes and things like that, Father, that ultimately we just seek you for all of those things. And Father, that you would give us peace, that you give us direction in the challenges of our life. And Father, we thank you again for our group and what you're doing in it. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.